Tariffs and the ongoing trade war with China. Congressman Gary Palmer tells me those are two of the issues coming up with constituents during his summer visit home. He says this is more than a trade war with China. This is about our nation's future.
What we have to do is go through this short-term suffering, and instead of looking at the next 90 days, 90-day futures, or looking at the next year, look at the next 25 to 50 years, and start creating agreements with other nations.
The congressman points to the recently negotiated agreement with the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, saying that demonstrates a willingness to strike a reasonable trade agreement between the nations. He's hoping for similar agreements with Japan, Vietnam, and eventually India. But the tariffs are impacting people like farmers here in our state. I asked him about those short-term effects.
In some of my discussions with different people in different parts of the economy, whether it's agribusiness or manufacturing, I think more and more people are starting to understand really what's at stake here, and it's in our long-term best interest. If we can adapt to the short-term consequences of it, the long-term benefits are, I think, justify what we're having to do right now.
Congressman Palmer says the economy is strong. He wants to see the U.S. capitalize on its oil and natural gas reserves, citing studies that show those exports would mean major government revenue and hundreds of thousands of jobs.
The United States is literally an energy superpower. We have oil and natural gas reserves that are absolutely unbelievable, amounts that were inconceivable just a few years ago. And we're now in a position to be the leader in exporting oil and natural gas.
During our conversation, the congressman also talked about the job market. He's encouraged by programs like the Hoover Career Tech Center, aimed at getting high schoolers ready for the job market before graduation.
Giving high school students a chance to do something that they like to do, where they can make a good living, but also get their high school diploma. Then you've got Hoover with their Career Center. And you're going to see more and more of that.
After recent mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton, tackling gun violence is one of the biggest issues lawmakers are under increased pressure to address.
We've got to look at this in a holistic manner, and at the same time do it in a way that we don't violate constitutional rights.
Congressman Gary Palmer tells me we need to gain a better understanding of what's causing people to commit violent acts and address needs in areas like mental health care.
We've got to do a much better job on the mental health side, and we've got to look at what's going on in the culture of the breakdown of the family. If you look at most of these rampage attacks in the United States, most of them are involved young white males from dysfunctional families or broken homes, and in many cases they're involved with medications of certain types, psychotropic drugs.
Congressman Palmer says expanded background checks should be explored, but added those laws have to be better enforced. I asked him about red flag laws, and he says while lawmakers are looking at that as an option, he believes it really should be left to the states.
If we go in that direction with a red flag law, we got to protect people from false accusations. At the same time, you got to protect individuals under the Fourth Amendment to their right to be secure in their persons, their papers, their houses, their possessions, and that any effort to deprive them of that has to be done with a warrant that is sworn to.
Congressman Palmer also pointed to a bipartisan bill he's co-sponsoring called the TAPS Act, or the Threat Assessment, Protection, and Safety Act, as another piece of addressing this. He says it would take protocols already in place at some federal agencies and help local and state law enforcement understand how to use those to better identify and assess potential threats.
It would be a state initiative. The federal government would provide the funding either through a block grant or an appropriation that would allow states to get this training. The Capitol Police, for instance, that's what they use. So I think that we've got to rethink how we do a lot of this stuff.